Good morning. Today we are reading the conclusion of One Evil Summer. I am the YA horror author of Vampire Juice. My link is in the bio. Dr. Miller leaned forward on his desk, his hands clasped. I want to have a talk with you, Amanda, he said, gazing into her eyes as if searching for her soul. I wanted another chance to go over everything with you. Thank you, Amanda replied uncomfortably. She scratched her shoulder. This uniform itches. The prison laundry starches. It's so much. The psychiatrist nodded. You do understand why the police arrested you? He asked softly. Amanda made a disgusted face. They were like everyone else. They didn't believe a word I said. She sighed unhappily. They believed that Chrissy was burned to death, Dr. Miller said, continuing to study her, until they found the wound on the back of her head. What they saw, they knew that Chrissy had been hit first, before the fire. They had to assume that you killed her first, then set the fire to make it look as if she burned to death. But that's a total lie, Amanda exclaimed. I told them how Chrissy hit her head on the boat. No one ever found the boat, Dr. Miller interrupted, clasping and unclasping his hands. It sank in the ocean, Amanda repeated for the 100th time. The tide must have carried it away. I know, the psychiatrist said. I just wanted you to understand why the police suspected you, and when they saw you running from the fire. I was running to Mary and Kyle, Amanda broke in. But what's the point? I've told this story about 100 times, but no one believes me. Amanda choked back a sob. If only Kyle could speak. But poor thing, he's in shock. He hasn't said a word since the fire. She looked up and saw the beginning of a smile on Dr. Miller's face. Amanda, I have wonderful news for you. Kyle is much better. He began speaking this morning, and his story does match yours. Those words brought a smile to Amanda's face. That's great. Dr. Miller smiled too. And the neighbor of the murdered judge. She told the police all she knew about Chrissy. That was the girl I talked to on the phone. Amanda said I was calling for a reference. The girl couldn't talk to me. She talked plenty to the police, Dr. Miller said. And now you're being set free, Amanda. I just wanted to have this talk to make sure everything was clear. I can't believe Chrissy is really dead, Amanda blurted out. She was so evil. It's still hard for me to believe that she's actually gone. Yes, she's dead, Dr. Miller said solemnly. He raised his eyes to Amanda. I have one more surprise for you before you've already guessed it. What's that? Amanda asked. Her name wasn't Chrissy. Her name was Lilith. Huh? Amanda reacted with surprise. But Lilith was in a coma, she exclaimed. Yes, Dr. Miller replied, nodding. One day she was in a deep coma. The next day she had vanished from the hospital into thin air. He sighed. Lilith somehow assumed the strange new powers while in the coma, and she set out to get revenge for her father and mother's death. Weird, Amanda murmured, shaking her head thoughtfully. So who was Chrissy? Why did Lilith take the name Chrissy? Well, Dr. Miller replied, scratching the back of his head, we don't really know why she took that name. According to the family photo album, we found Chrissy was the name of her cat. It seemed as if that the hugging would never stop. Mary and Kyle clung to Amanda as if they hadn't seen her in years. Everyone cried, laughed, and cried some more. What a reunion. When her parents apologized again and again for not believing her, and when the apologizing stopped, the hugging and crying and laughing started all over again. It felt so good to Amanda to be out in the sunshine, to breathe the warm, fresh air, to dress in her own clothes again, to laugh and talk and be with someone she loved. Finally, they all climbed into their station wagon and began their journey home. Amanda sat in the back with Mary and Kyle, petting the calico kitten on her lap. What a horrible time, she said sadly. I'll be having nightmares for the rest of my life. Just keep telling yourself that it's over, her mother told her. It's all over. The kitten purred softly in Amanda's lap. The station wagon rumbled over the narrow beach road. Amanda glanced back in time to see the remains of their summer house, black and charred as it rolled past on the right. And who was that girl standing in the driveway? The girl in the white sundress, her blonde hair gleaming in the sunlight. That girl with one hand raised over her head, waving to them as they drove past. Hey, Mom, Dad, Amanda cried breathlessly. But when she turned back, the girl was gone. Oh my goodness. That is the conclusion of One Evil Summer. Here's a little bit about R.L. Stine. Where do you get your ideas? The question that R.L. Stine is asked most often. I don't know where my ideas come from, he says, but I do know that I have a lot more scary stories in my mind that I can't wait to write. So far, he has written more than 50 mysteries and thrillers for young people, all of them bestsellers. Bob grew up in Columbus, Ohio. Today, he lives in an apartment near Central Park in New York City with his wife, Jane, and 14-year-old son, Matt. All right. Well, since I didn't read very much today, I will read Monster Blood 2. This is we're starting here on Chapter 10, Monster Blood 2. Evan swung the paper bag behind his back. Conan lumbered toward them over the tall grass. His eyes were narrowed menacingly at Evan. How long has he been hiding there? Evan wondered. Did he hear us talk about the monster blood? Is that why he wants the bag? Hi, I'm Andy. Andy chirped brightly. She stepped in between the two boys and flashed Conan a smile. Andy is a boy name, Conan said, making a disgusted face. He turned his hard stare on her, challenging her. What kind of name is Conan? Andy shot back, returning his stare. You know me? Conan asked, sounding surprised. You're famous, Andy replied dryly. Conan suddenly remembered Evan. He stuck out his big jaw. I'll take the bag now. Why should I give it to you? Evan demanded, trying to keep his voice calm and steady. Because it's mine, Conan lied. I dropped it here. You dropped an empty bag here? Evan asked. Conan swatted a fly from his blonde hair. And it isn't empty. I saw you put something in it. Hand it over. Now! Well, okay. Evan handed him a paper bag. Conan eagerly reached inside. His hand came out empty. He peered inside the bag. Empty. He stared hard at Andy, then at Evan. I told you it was empty, Evan said. Guess I made a mistake, Conan muttered. Hey, no hard feelings. Shake? Conan reached out his big right hand to Evan. Evan reluctantly struck out his hand. Conan slid his hand over Evan's and began to tighten his grip, harder and harder. Evan's fingers cracked so loudly that they sounded like a tree falling. Conan squeezed Evan's hand harder and harder until Evan screamed in pain. When Conan finally let go, the hand looked like a slab of raw hamburger. "Nice handshake you got there," Conan explained, grinning. He snapped his finger against Andy's nose, then headed off quickly toward the street, taking long strides, laughing to himself. "Great guy," Andy muttered, rubbing her nose. Evan blew on his hand as if trying to put out a fire. "Maybe I can learn to be left-handed," he murmured. "Hey, where's the monster blood?" Andy demanded. "I dropped it," Evan replied, still examining his hand. "Huh?" She kicked away a clump of weeds and stepped over to him. "I thought I could shove the can into my back jeans pocket while Conan was talking to you," Evan explained, "but it slipped out of my hand and I dropped it." He turned, bent over, and picked it up from the tall grass. "Good thing it didn't roll or anything." Conan would have seen it. "He wouldn't know what to do with it if he had. If he had it," Andy said. "What are we going to do with it?" Evan demanded. "It already caused us trouble. We got to hide it, or throw it away, or..." Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh, he pulled open the lid. "Oh wow, look." He held the can up to Andy's face. The green goo had grown nearly to the top of the can. "It's starting to grow a lot faster, I guess because we exposed it to the air." Evan slammed the lid on tight. "Let's bury it," Andy suggested. "Here, right under this tree. We'll dig a deep hole and bury it." Evan liked the idea. It was simple and quick. They squatted down and began digging with their hands. The dirt beneath the tree was soft. The hole grew deep before they had worked up a sweat. Evan dropped the blue can of monster blood into the hole. Then they quickly covered it with dirt, smoothing it out until it was impossible to tell the hole had been dug. "This was a good plan," Andy said, climbing to her feet, playfully wiping the dirt off her hands on the back of Evan's t-shirt. "If we need it, we'll know where it is." Evan's red hair was matted to his forehead with sweat. He had a wide smear of dirt across his freckled forehead. "Huh? Why would we need it?" he demanded. Andy shrugged. "Never know." "You won't need it," Evan told her firmly. "We won't." He was very, very wrong. "Hey, Dad." Chapter 11. "Hey, Dad, what's up?" Evan stepped into the garage. Mr. Ross stopped hammering and turned around. He smiled at Evan. "Want to see my newest work?" "The auditorium later this week." Evan gave the wheel another spin. "I'll bet no one else made a wheel that really spins," he told his father. You can't lose with this, Dad," he teased. "Sarcasm is the lowest form of humor," Mr. Ross muttered with a frown. Evan said goodbye and made his way out of the garage, stepping carefully over the jagged pieces of brass and tin. As he headed to the house, he could hear the clang, clang, clang as his dad hammered away on his impression of a leaf. In the halls after school on Monday, Evan hurried around the corner and bumped into Andy. "I can't talk now," he told her breathlessly. "I'm late for basketball tryouts." He glanced down the long hall. It was nearly empty. The gym door opened, and he could hear the thump of basketballs against the floor. "How come you're late?" Andy demanded, blocking his path. Murphy kept me after class, Evan told her with a groan. He put me on permanent hamster duty. I have to take care of Cuddles every afternoon for the rest of my life. Bad news, Andy murmured. No, that's good news, Evan replied barely. What's the bad news? Bad news is that Mr. Murphy is also the basketball coach. Well, good luck, she said. Hope you make the team. Evan ran past her, his heart pounding. Mr. Murphy is such a rat, he thought unhappily. He'll probably keep me off the team because I'm late to practice, even though it's his fault I'm late. Evan took a deep breath. No, stop thinking like that, he scolded himself. Think positive. Gotta think positive. Sure, I'm not as tall as the other boys. Maybe I'm not as big or as strong, but I'm a basketball player, and I can make this team. I can make this team. I know I can. Having finished his pep talk to himself, Evan pulled open the double gym doors and stepped into the huge, brightly lit gym. Think fast, a voice called. Evan felt his face explode with pain. Then everything went black. Oh my gosh. All right. One more chapter, and then I'm going to stop. This is chapter 12. When Evan opened his eyes, he found himself staring at about 20 guys and Mr. Murphy. He was stretched out flat on his back on the gym floor. His face still hurt. A lot. He reached his hand up and touched his nose. To his dismay, it felt like a wilted leaf of lettuce. You okay, Evan? Mr. Murphy asked quietly, as the teacher leaned over Evan. The whistle that was on a string around his neck bumped against Evan's chest. Did my face explode? Evan asked weakly. Some of the guys snickered. Mr. Murphy glowered at them angrily. Then he turned back to Evan. Conan hit you in the face with a basketball, he reported. He's got bad reflexes, Coach. Evan heard Conan say from somewhere above him. He should have caught the ball. I really thought he'd catch it. But he's got bad reflexes. I saw the whole thing, Conan's friend, a huge hulk of a kid named Biggie Malik, chimed in. It wasn't Conan's fault. Evan should have caught the ball. It was a perfect pass. Perfect. Even though, Evan thought with a sigh. He touched his nose again. This time, it felt like a lump of mashed potatoes. At least it isn't broken, he thought glumly. Evan's basketball tryout went downhill from there. Mr. Murphy helped him to his feet. You sure you want to try out? He asked. Thanks for the support, Evan thought barely. Think I can make the team, he said. But Conan, Biggie, and the other guys had other ideas. During the ball handling tryout, Evan carefully began dribbling across the floor. Halfway to the basket, Biggie bumped him hard, and Conan stole the ball away. They blocked Evan's shots. They stole his passes. They bumped him every time he moved, sending him sprawling to the hardwood floor again and again. A fast pass from Cannon caught Evan in the mouth. Oops, sorry, Conan yelled. Biggie laughed like a hyena. Defense! I want to see defense, Mr. Murphy shouted from the sidelines. Evan lowered himself into a defensive stance as Conan dribbled the ball toward him. Evan prepared to defend the basket. Conan drove closer. Evan raised both hands to block Conan's shot. But to Evan's surprise, Conan let the ball bounce away. In one swift motion, he grabbed Evan by the waist, leaped high in the air, and stuffed Evan into the basket. 3 points, Conan shouted in triumph. Biggie and the other guys rushed to congratulate Conan, laughing and cheering. Mr. Murphy had to get a stepladder to help Evan down. His hand on Evan's shoulder, the teacher led him to the side. You're just not tall enough, Evan, he said, rubbing his pink chins. Don't take it personally. Maybe you'll grow. But for now, you're just not tall enough. Evan didn't say a word. He lowered his head and sadly slumped out of the gym. Conan came running up to him at the door. "Hey, Evan, no hard feelings," he said. He stuck out his big sweaty hand. "Shake?" Evan held out his hand to show Andy. "It looks like a wilted petunia," she said. "I can't believe I fell for Cannon's stupid handshake trick. Twice," Evan wailed. It was the next afternoon. Evan and Andy had walked from school to the small park near their houses. Evan had complained about Mr. Murphy and Conan and the other basketball players the whole way. The late afternoon sun beamed down on them as they walked. Andy stopped to watch two monarch butterflies, their black and gold wings fluttering majestically as they hovered over a patch of blue and yellow wildflowers along the creek bed. Evan, trickling Brown Creek, looked pretty on the bright day. Tiny white gnats sparkled like diamonds in the sunlight over the shimmering water. Evan kicked at a fallen tree branch. Evan looked dark to him today, dark and ugly. "It just wasn't fair," he grumbled, kicking the branch again. "It wasn't a fair trial. Mr. Murphy should have given me a better chance." Andy tissed her eyes on the sparkling creek. "Someone should teach Mr. Murphy a lesson," Evans said. "I wish I could think of some way of paying him back. I really do." Andy turned to him. A devilish grin crossed her face. "I have a plan," she said softly. "A really neat plan." "What is it?" Evan demanded. Got a little bit more time. Chapter 13. Are you who? "What's your idea?" Evan demanded again. Andy grinned at him. She was wearing a long lime green t-shirt over a day-glow orange t-shirt pulled down over baggy blue shorts. The sunlight made all the colors so bright. Evan felt like shielding his eyes. "You might not like it," Andy said coyly. "Try me," Evan replied. "Come on, don't keep me in suspense." "Well," her eyes wandered over to the tree where they had buried the monster blood. "It has to do with the monster blood," she said reluctantly. He swallowed hard. "That's okay. Go on." "Well, it's a pretty simple plan. First, we dig up the monster blood," Andy said, watching his reaction. "Yeah." "Then we take some to school," she continued. "Yeah." "Then we feed it to Cuddles." "Oh, this isn't going to go bad, is it?" Evan's mouth dropped open. "Just a little bit," Andy quickly exclaimed. "We feed Cuddles a tiny glob of it, just enough to make him the size of a dog." Evan laughed. It was a terrible idea, truly evil idea, but he loved it. He slapped Andy on the back. "You're bad, Andy," he cried. "You're really bad." Evan grinned proudly. "I know." Evan laughed again. "Can you see the look on Murphy's face when he comes in and sees his precious little hamster has grown as big as a cocker spaniel? What a riot." "So you'll do it?" Andy asked. Evan's smile faded. "I guess," he replied thoughtfully. "If you promise we'll only use a tiny bit, and we'll bury the rest right away." "Promise," Andy said. "Just enough to play our little joke on Mr. Murphy. Then we'll never use the stuff again." "Okay," Evan agreed. "Break in," Andy whispered. "We're going to sneak in." "But what if the monster blood isn't there?" Evan asked, hoping she couldn't see his knees trembling. We have to look, don't we?" Andy shot back. She turned to study his face. He saw that she was frightened too. "The monster blood will be there," she told him. "It's gotta be." Bending low, she started to creep across the dark yard to the house. Evan hung back. "You checked it out," he called to her. "Everyone is really gone. The parents left right after dinner," Andy told him. "Then I saw Conan about 10 minutes ago." "Where?" Evan demanded. "How should I know?" she asked sharply, putting her hands on her waist. He left the house. The house is empty. She came back and tugged Evan's arm. Come on, let's sneak into Conan's room. Get the monster blood and get out of there. I can't believe we're doing this, Evan said, sighing. We could be arrested. It was your idea, Andy reminded him. Oh, yeah, right. He took a deep breath and held it, hoping it would help calm him down. If we don't find it right away, we get out of there, right? Right, Andy agreed. Now come on. She gave him a little shove toward the house. They took a few steps over the dew-wet grass. They both stopped when they heard the low barking. Andy grabbed Evan's arm. The barking grew louder. They could hear the dog's heavy paws pounding the ground, approaching fast. 2 angry eyes, a loud, warning bark. Another. The dog attacked at full speed. Run, Evan cried. Conan has a guard dog. Too late to run, Andy shrieked. Okay. Well, that's the end of chapter 14. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. And if you like YA horror mystery adventures that is reminiscent of Goosebumps, Fear Street, and Are You Afraid of the Dark, check out my link in the bio, Vampire Juice.